Hi, it's Lynne Golodner, and welcome to the Make Meaning podcast. I'm a writer and entrepreneur, and through decades of writing articles for magazines and newspapers and authoring books, I've learned that we succeed through inspiration from storytelling and deep and mutually beneficial relationships. This show began in 2018 after my father was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I wanted a way to capture his stories and record his insights. It's grown since then to share stories of how people around the world make meaning from very ordinary pursuits. Now I focus on sharing the stories of writers, authors, and those in the world of publishing to learn how and why we create stories that help us make meaning from the mundane. I'm a former journalist and marketing entrepreneur, and I've been teaching writing for more than 2 decades. As a writing coach, I help authors build their brands and share their words. If you'd like to write with me, check out my offerings at lynnegolodner.com. And you'll find more episodes of this podcast at makemeaning.org, as well as on every podcast platform you can think of. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts. Thank you for tuning in to the Make Meaning podcast. Now, on to the show. I first met Anne-Marie Oomen when I started the MFA in writing program at Goddard College. She was finishing that semester as I began. I've followed her over the years as her writing appeared in impressive places. And as a fellow Michigander, I was so inspired by her stories of life in the Northern Midwest. I'm delighted that we are now friends and sit on the board of Michigan Writers together. Anne-Marie Oomen won AWP's Sue William Silverman Nonfiction Award for As Long as I Know You, the Mom Book, which was published by University of Georgia Press. She edited Elemental, a collection of Michigan nonfiction, authored The Lake Michigan Mermaid, Pulling Down the Barn, and House of Fields, all of which were Michigan notable books. She has also written American Map Essays, a collection of poetry called Uncoded Woman, and Love, Sex, and 4-H, which won the Next Generation Indie Award for Memoir. She has also written 7 plays, including the award-winning Secrets of Loose Talk Tavern. She teaches poetry and nonfiction at Solstice MFA at LaSalle University and Interlochen College of Creative Arts. Anne-Marie, welcome to the Make Meaning podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful. And it's an honor to be here. And I am really appreciative of your interest and your support. And I love your podcast.
Oh.
I've been listening in tidbits. I just listened to Camille Pagans. Is that how you say her last name?
Uh-huh.
And I found it fascinating. And so thank you for this work. I think it's really helpful to writers.
Oh, thanks so much. I really have fun. And frankly, it's indulgent for me because I get to talk with amazing writers and, ask all these probing questions and learn how they do all the beautiful things they do. And so it's a guilty pleasure and I'm really grateful. So thank you for being here.
I think you have such a positive attitude that it's inevitable that it would be good.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I appreciate it. Well, let's focus on you. And so I want to start by asking you to tell me about your earliest memory of writing. So have you always written and what has it brought you throughout your life?
Oh, such a lovely question to start out with that. I was always interested in language. I think I've said in the past that my family were Catholics. And so I had a heavy dose of biblical literature. Mm-hmm. I was perhaps different from other children learning that stuff in that I really loved the Old Testament. I loved all those stories, Moses and Noah and all of those stories just fascinated me. And the other part of my childhood literature was, believe it or not, Grimm's and Andersen fairy tales, which are pretty grim. So early on, I had all this influence and this is in a farm family. So those were the 2 literatures that were sort of acceptable. Mm-hmm. My mother didn't buy children's books. She didn't use the library a lot. And so that was kind of this impulse for literature that was beyond me, even as a little girl. And the metaphorical values and the sort of suspense, the narratives that weren't always happy endings, the sense of justice and injustice operating in those kinds of things, metaphors, all of that were playing in. So I was intrigued at a very young age with the mystery of language and how it all worked. But this is from the sublime to the ridiculous. The very first time I made an attempt was when I was about 11 or 12 years old. My mother, who knew, I think early on, that I was not going to fit into the farm life, but she didn't know what to do about it. And she gave me a subscription to the American Girl magazine, which is a really blonde magazine.
Yes.
And unfortunately, but in that magazine, there were columns. Subscribers, young girls, had written little stories, vignettes, poems, and sent them in. And that was probably the only part of the magazine that I was fascinated with, because all of a sudden there was this consciousness that, oh, it's not just about reading this stuff. I could actually write something that might connect me with this idea of an audience, this reader thing out there. And these are all very rudimentary thoughts, but I wrote a description of a sunset on our farm. And I remember I took this tattered piece of paper out to my mother, and she is working like a dog out at the well pit. She's filling jugs, doing something. And we're outside, the wind is blowing. I can still feel it when she takes that piece of paper from me, and she sort of reads it, and her hands are dirty. And she looks up at me and she says, "Do you like this? You like to do this?" And it was such a direct question. There was surprise in her voice, but there was also this recognition of, oh, for me, maybe this is my thing. Maybe this is where I'm different. And so that was, very early beginnings. I was not a particularly good student, and it wasn't. So you just got part one. Here's quick part two.
Yes, please.
Part two comes, I became a teacher. I loved reading. I loved language. So that was an inevitable thing. But as I began teaching, I realized that the courses I loved were the creative courses.
Okay.
They were the creative writing courses, or they were the essay courses where there was some flexibility in the curriculum. And I was doing work right alongside those kids. And when my first marriage, my practice marriage, kind of fell apart, that's a time, I think, for so many women, but also for men, when you do a reassessment. And
absolutely.
I said, and that was in my early 30s, and I said, what is it that I really, really want? What is it that I love? I can't give up teaching. That's the hardcore day job. I do, and I loved it. But what is it I'm longing for? And it came right back. I wanted to write. I really wanted to write. And though I had an astute sense of reading and literature and appreciation for that, the actual craft of writing was new, and I had not practiced it deeply. So beyond my little journaling efforts and my little practice things with the kids, with my students, I started taking classes, going to workshops, attending conferences, seeking mentors, and I had good luck with that. But still, I was in my early 30s. It took me 10 years to write that first book and 10 years to get it published. So it was a long journey.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that too, the whole path I want to hear a lot about. But okay. I love that all that you're talking about, because this sense of, what is it that I love? What is it that I'm called to do? What am I longing for? I feel like, it's such a joy when we can ask those questions and then look for the answers. And especially women, at least from our generation, we weren't really encouraged, I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but to do that, like for me, it was, hey, I'll pay for law school, but what are you doing with an MFA? Like, come on. And I just remember saying to my dad, well, it's like a quarter of the price. So come on, like it's what I love.
Do the math, Dad.
Yeah. But of course I understand his thinking, well, what's a degree in poetry going to get you? But a law degree, you'll make money. And so I understand the practical desire, to protect your child and to say, I just want you to be okay. But I think that, the freedom to decide, I'm going to go in pursuit of what really speaks to me, what really drives me, is such a beautiful thing. And I've talked with other writers who they say, I can't not write. I can't,
Right.
I mean, is that
and that's exactly,
same for you?
exactly where I was in that moment in my early 30s, that I couldn't think of anything else that would bring me joy. And this is coming out of, and I think so often this happens, this is coming out of a sense of failure, that this marriage had not worked out, that the creativity I'd placed and the hope I'd placed in it was not going to fulfill me.
Yeah.
And so it was up to me. And I think that's another moment for women often to realize, oh, this is up to me. I have to create the circumstances under which this will grow.
Yeah. And that you're responsible for your own happiness.
Yes.
And your own success.
That's a big one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Smart words.
Really powerful. So let's talk a little bit about your writing, which I love to read. I just, I've followed you for a million years because I first, met you so to speak at Goddard when you were finishing and I was starting. And so I was like, oh my God, she's so great. And I know you probably didn't even notice me, but I remembered a reading that you gave I think it was at the graduation when you left. And it just really struck me because I was so new at exploring this and having the freedom to really step into my writer's shoes. And so, hearing, I think it was an essay about your mother. And then of course to read the book that just came out, which I would love for you to, talk about a little bit about your mother. It was just, I feel like, oh my gosh, I started to hear a little bit about this voice so many years ago, and now I'm holding the book in my hand. So maybe start by telling me a little bit about the story of this book and the whole process and that whole journey.
Thank you. Wow. Beautiful question. My mother and I were not close friends, unfortunately. We were, this can happen in families. And as I've shared the book with people, more and more people have come forward to confirm my impulse on this, that even though you can come from a really good, loving family with good practices of communication, you can have personalities that are opposite to each other and that are just going to be in conflict no matter how you approach it. And that was the case for my mother and me. We were just at loggerheads almost from the beginning. She tried very hard to be a good mother, but I pushed against her a lot. And she had an immense amount of personal strength. And so we were often not close. Yeah. And through our lives, that became a real problem for both of us. I think we kept trying, but we were not good friends, which is really sad. When my father died in 2010, we began to realize what often happens in couples, older couples, is that one is masking the frailty of the other. Yeah. And I know we may all be there someday, but in this particular case, we realized my mom was in early stages of dementia and we were going to have to step up. Yeah. And that to me was a real crossroads because I thought, well, can I get away with doing just what I have to do not to be neglectful?
I love the honesty. I love the honesty. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
And within short order, I realized that was not going to work. Yeah. That this was going to have to be full on investment. My sisters and I were going to have to get on board, and we were going to a lot of communication that we had to work through. And so in the process of losing my mother to dementia and to this aging process, we became friends. The vulnerability in her, well, some of it, she forgot some of the things we had done to each other. But the other thing was the vulnerability softened her sense of criticalness and her sense of strength and authority. And that was really an opening for me. And I guess me finally seeing her vulnerability and coming in contact with this person who was different from my judgment of her, began a journey that lasted 10 years and has been a rethinking almost entirely of my whole life.
Really? So, tell me more about that.
Well, when I had to face my own, and this is happening through the writing, because I started writing this September of 2014, I realized what was happening to us. And I wanted to record it. And so I was journaling more than I have about any of my other books.
Mm-hmm,
So I was
mm-hmm.
journaling, I was writing incidents, I was recording dialogue as I remembered it almost as soon as I would get home from her visit. I realized that this journey was taking me inward in a way that I had walled off.
Wow.
And the writing itself, writing down what I saw just as I saw it, opened doors for me, because suddenly I wasn't reacting anymore. I was recording, and that may be a nuanced difference, but just the recording of what happened and recalling was a way that I could open myself without judgment finally.
Yeah.
Just trying to get it down. This is what she said. This is what I said. This is what the nurses said. This is what it looked like. And that sense of simply making the observations allowed me to separate myself from, little by little, I mean, it wasn't immediate, but little by little, from the past very set responses that I had developed to protect myself from her.
Yeah.
She, as I said, was forgetting things. So there was one moment when I would try to help her remember things, and she would say things back to me. And she said, "Oh, you're the one who remembers things." And I realized that I had almost full control over what she was remembering. And that was such an insight to think about, oh, I can rethink these for her too, these memories that were so hurtful.
Wow.
And it was an odd kind of authority given by this loss of memory that then transposed into the opportunity for forgiveness.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
So,
I loved reading the book for as long as I know you, right?
Yeah, as long as I know you.
As long as I know you.
The subtitle is The Mom Book.
Yes. And it's such a beautiful title. And I know, what the reference is because I've read the essays. It's really poignant. And something that you said just really struck me. My background is journalism. And then I, came to creative was always there. And I do feel like I bring some interviewing skills and noticing those details from my journalism days, which for my poetry is really powerful because it's those exact details that just paint the picture. What you're saying is really brilliant because it's really like probably you teach this as well. And I teach this in my writing classes, that show the scene, don't interpret it for your reader, but just show the scene. And that's really what you were doing. I mean, you were recording all the fodder for future stories. I mean, maybe you didn't know at the time what you would turn them into, but having that raw material, I feel, makes the writing so much richer when you do figure out how you're going to use it. And what a treasure that is. That's
such a smart connection to what I think of as really good journalism, that there is there's, maybe you can't completely eliminate judgment, but there is very little. You try to tamp it down so that what you're creating is an objectivity that we can trust.
Yeah.
And then when I went back to those recordings, those journal entries and all those little mini chapters, I found, here's how I can not make, but remake meaning.
Yeah.
So I can transform that old sensibility by surrounding this moment, these incidents and these dialogues with the awareness, the memoirist, of course, that the memoirist has that awareness. The double vision of the memoirist is that what happened then, and then you bring in that kind of microscopic vision or telescopic vision rather of what it means now, how we understand it now. And I think that's, that whole book was probably life therapy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can't tell you how many writing classes I've taught where somebody cries, and I understand it because you're just allowing yourself to dig deep and be vulnerable and trusting the world with these stories that maybe you'd never wanted to share. And it's a scary thing. It really is.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And that vulnerability, when it comes to the page, through those details that you mentioned earlier, which I think is so essential, the very deeply personal detail, those explode with universality. Yes. They just open right up. It's all kindred with what you're saying. When we remove the judgment, even for a little while, if we can just suspend our our narratives of ourselves or our relationships long enough to just look objectively, then I think we have clues as to how to transform.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, obviously, these were stories that you were curious about. You wanted to remember these memories. I don't know if you had the vision that you'd write this book when you started recording all the details, but how do you normally come to your topics, to your subject matter? Is it just sort of you notice things around you? Are there relationships you want to understand? Or do you have a vision for sort of your body of work that is about certain things? Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I find that new ideas often come from other writers, readers, generative experiences. Travel is huge. For me. We just returned from travels in Latin America where we do some volunteer work. And I have raw drafts of 3 new essays. And
nice.
It's that heightened state of receptivity and awareness that you have to be in when you travel that I think starts to generate new thinking and new ideas. One line in a poem that will stay with me, and I'll start with copying that line down. Eventually that line dissolves, but it becomes a kind of like shampoo. The shampoo goes away, but the bubbles keep coming and coming.
Yep.
And those ideas grow from some image that I think, I don't know deep brain science in any way, but I think it has to be an image that has multiple sensory associations with it and also an emotional association with it, so that the brain is really gnawing at it in order for that to become a starter. So that's just one of the ways that I begin. And then I go back to my journal a lot because I'm always right there, and I'm going, okay, why did this incident stay with me? Why is this the incident that I wrote about that day and not 3 others?
Right.
And so often there's something little embedded in that has a launch point in it.
Yeah.
So those are ways that I begin. In terms of process, I like to write in the morning. That's the fresh time. Often I'll write almost immediately as soon as I have a cup of coffee in my hand for 20 minutes, half an hour.
Okay.
And I'll get up and get dressed and do that. And then I go back sometimes an hour later and start again. And that's the rich time, like 2 or 3 hours, usually, not more than that. I've learned the hard way. If I push too hard in one day, I'll be too tired the next day. It's really a brain power thing. That muscle gets tired, especially as I get older. So there's, that 2 or 3 hours of rich work. And then I have to have a break, exercise, walk, catch up, do stuff. And sometimes in the afternoons, I can come back and revise now that I have the flexibility to do that. I used to work also late at night, and I can't do that anymore.
I can't imagine that, both ends of the candle. It's just, there
was a time, but now not so much. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
It does. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And I know that you straddle genres, and I love that about you. I tend to, I think, gravitate toward writers who are so versatile in that way, that because I do the same, and it's just really fun to experiment with all different, structures for writing. So tell me a little bit about, what about the various forms of writing attract you, and how do you choose which story goes into which format or which genre?
Sure. I think I'm going to hearken to, what is it? Big Magic. I don't know if you've read that book about the ideas know what they want.
Okay.
And I really feel like when an idea starts to generate and starts to perk, the first go-to is the journal, just what have I got here? Is this something I'm going to follow through or not? But often I'm waiting to hear if it's a personal essay, if it's a poem, if it's a vignette, if it's flash, if it's fiction. I don't write in very often, but when I do, it's real clear that that's what it belongs to. If it's a play or a script of some sort, that I'm kind of waiting for that. Very often I will do an early draft in poem form as a placeholder.
Okay.
Knowing that even though I'm playing with lines and metaphors and I'm really trying to dive into the language, I am not going to probably stay there.
Okay.
I just finished a long piece about our experience in Costa Rica, and I'm already pretty sure that's a short essay and not a short travel essay and not a poem, although it has the poetic elements that I like.
Which makes it a beautiful essay. So that's great.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope it does that. And then here's the other thing about it. I have to hop genres because I get blocked really easily or distracted really easily, but mostly blocked. And the way I can break it fast is to switch genres.
Okay.
So if I'm writing a poem and I'm stuck and I'm blocked, and I sit down and I move into an entirely different piece of revision, like an essay or a piece of dialogue or a little flash something or other.
Yeah.
Very often when I go back to that piece, whatever was blocking has died down.
Yeah.
And it's letting it opens up again. And I find a way to enter into that is satisfying and takes the next step.
I love that.
So it's the real practical thing too. Let's just go to another genre. If you write a letter, instead of angsting over a single line, then all of a sudden there's another audience there. There's there's a singular voice, and you're using all these other skills. And I think the brain rests maybe a little bit.
Sure.
Or it goes subversive maybe and says, okay, while you're doing that, I'm gonna work on this for you.
Nice. Nice. So I know that you've said that your first book came out when you were 53, and I love that detail. And so I want to hear about your various publishing paths, like how you have found homes for your work. So both books and essays or poems or whatever. So take me through your publishing journeys.
Oh, thank you. I started, of course, with individual submissions, mostly to poetry magazines.
Okay.
And the first that just here and there back in my early 30s, I'd have the success of, a little piece here and a little piece in these small, and that was back when everything was hard copy.
Okay.
And
so in the mail, like, with your,
right.
I used to have index cards to keep everything straight before and like the stamps and the self-addressed stamped envelope. Oh my God, it was such an ordeal, right?
Yes, it was. It was such an ordeal.
Yes.
And if you forgot the stamps, then, anyway.
You'd never hear. It's like out of the ether. It was like, exactly.
And then those little Rolodexes that you had the list of where you'd sent and when it came back. And if you didn't keep that track of that, you'd get confused. Anyway, I'm really glad those days are done.
Same.
But I was writing, Traverse magazine back then had a back page that had big, beautiful photographs. And I offered to write a haiku for those. So that was the first sort of real publication.
Nice.
And, that had a larger audience, is these little haikus. I probably only did that for maybe a year for them. But when they stopped doing that, I said, well, can I write something else? And they said, well, we have these up north columns, and they were 750 words, and they wanted them to be deeply personal but about Michigan, usually about up north in some way. And so I started writing those. And it turns out those were my first sort of forays into the essay, into the personal essay.
Okay.
And excuse me, I found that they were ways that I could write longer, practicing the sentence more deeply. I could talk about my family. Through that, I began to realize that, there's an essayist living in here somewhere who kind of likes to have a free flow of language in a way that poetry doesn't always support.
Yeah.
So then there were these two sort of viable mistresses running around inside of my heart. And so I began writing those essays. And what's interesting is the book that will come out this fall, it's called The Long Fields, is a retrospective. I'm old enough to have that. It collects all of those essays I wrote for Traverse Magazine, Glen Arbor Sun, Michigan Humanities Council, all those little projects that were all relatively short. Into one volume, which is really exciting. An honor.
Yeah.
Really
I had no idea that was coming out. I thought that you're like book upon book upon book. I love this. Yeah.
But That first journey was really tough. It took me 10 years to write Pulling Down the Barn. That was the very first one.
Okay.
And then I started circulating it, and it just got rejection after rejection. And this is where I say often, I'm not a particularly brilliant person, but I am very tenacious. I know that about myself.
Okay.
And I just kept trying. I'd get feedback and I'd adjust with every time the feedback would come. I would say, okay, if this rings true to me, I'm going to make the adjustment. I'm going to take out this chapter, whatever.
Yeah.
And gradually that also improved the manuscript, created more interlocking themes among the pieces that weren't there before. And finally, my friend Michael Delp at Interlochen said, I've been in touch with the new acquisitions editor at Wayne State University Press.
Okay.
I know you've tried there before and you were rejected. Why don't you try again and just see?
Okay.
And so I did. And she responded relatively quickly. Annie Martin, I don't know people out there
the name.
Know her name. And she was very complimentary. She loved the rural, which would become part of my brand, this idea of working with the rural culture and celebrating the rural culture. And she said, can you do a couple things, and then I'm going to send it out for internal reviews, which is a pattern. That's how university presses often, I think many independent presses do it. We'll see what happens. And so I did exactly what she said. She sent it out. And as I said, this was my second attempt with them.
Yes.
And the reviews came back positively. And so that was the beginning.
Fantastic.
And that book won a Michigan Notable Book Award, which was just floored me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that award was,
Fantastic.
It's when it comes through, but I was 53. I wasn't starry-eyed.
Yes.
I knew the work. I knew what it meant. And I knew if I was going to keep going, I would have to keep going.
I feel like most authors that I meet, their first book comes out much later than we think. Like it's the rare writer whose first book comes out at 22 or, 28 even, like I think it's much more common that it's 40s, 50s, 60s. And I don't know if it's just that they've worked on their craft or they're saying enough, I'm really taking this seriously now, but I do think a lot of writers really get their groove in midlife.
I do too. I feel like I needed the training, first of all, which I think people overlook.
Yeah.
I remember students saying to me, well, I don't want to read a lot because I don't want anything to ruin my voice. I'm going,
okay.
Oh, darling. Sorry.
Oh my.
You don't really have a voice yet.
Yes.
You need to live a little bit, and I don't mean to discount their experiences or their lives in any way, because there are plenty of young people who have a voice, but it just felt a little pretentious to me, knowing that how hard writers work to create the beautiful sentence or to create the sentence that has a rhythm that is a voice. To think you just have that felt.
I mean, I'm sorry. No, that was something I learned at Goddard, was that you have to read the heck out of the world and what happened to me, I don't know if this happened to you, but unconsciously I was imitating to try to learn what they were doing on the page. And at first, when I realized that, I was horrified. I'm like, am I plagiarizing? Oh my gosh. But then I realized that is a necessary step that you have to go through before you get to your voice.
Exactly. Oh, and that is so smart.
Yeah.
If you can replicate the syntax of a sentence of somebody you admire, then you start to take apart its innards, and you start to see, oh, there is a downbeat here, or this is how these verbs are being used, or this is the language of color, whatever it is, then you can take it in. Yeah. And then it becomes a tool.
Yes. And only when you've done that can you then, evolve into your own voice. And I just remember one day I was doing it, but I couldn't have made it happen. I had to go through the process.
Right.
So, and that's just part of
that is so. There's a reason you're a brilliant coach.
Oh, Thank you. Well, you have to grow up as a writer, I guess. And that's the way you do it, right?
Yeah.
Just like you do as a kid. I mean, you look at all the adults around you and you decide what you like and what you don't, so you can make those decisions unconsciously, of course. So I want to pivot a little bit because one of the things is a new joy for me is that we get to work together on the board of Michigan Writers.
I know.
But you know so much more than I do about the organization's inception and purpose. And so I would love to have you talk a little bit about Michigan Writers so our listeners can join us and learn about this wonderful organization. So tell me a little bit about how it came to be and how you were involved with it.
Well, thank you for asking that. Michigan Writers, it's a nonprofit organization. It's statewide, though most of our in-person events end up happening in the northern part of the state.
Yeah.
So we are, I guess I would call us a literary collection of folks who have come together to build community and to serve writers by offering publishing opportunities and connections with each other. And we sponsor free workshops, lots of writing opportunities. We try to offer at least one thing a month, sometimes two or three. We sponsor the Dunes Review, which is now in its 28th year, I think, 28th or 29th year. A chapbook contest for new writers, developing writers. The chapbook is often that gateway book or that gateway publication to a larger publication. And then other kinds of activities. We just started an open window, which is a free writing hour once a month. It's all intended to serve a community of literary thinkers. We were founded over 20 years ago now. And one of the first impulses was that we would be kind of a clearinghouse for submission opportunities. Writers, at that time, there was nothing like Submittable or Duotrope or any of those things that we all turn to like without thinking about anymore. And we thought, but very quickly, it became clear that it would be service and community that we would be building for literary people, both readers and writers. So I was involved with the board and was actually president for a while in the first decade. And then when my teaching career took off with Interlochen and I had to kind of choose, I had been chair, and then I had the opportunity actually to teach for an MFA program, and I knew I couldn't do everything. So I stepped away for about a decade and have just recently returned. And so I'm thrilled that the organization is holding and it continues to serve. The newsletter continues to grow. There's so many opportunities there. And now we have a great membership guru, and we have you doing fabulous social media. So
trying.
So I really thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for the opportunity. And I just want to spread the word and let people know this is a wonderful resource and community. And I just want to see it grow and grow. I'm sure so many people we could be pulling in. So that's
thank
fabulous.
you. And thanks for letting me talk about it. It's a wonderful organization, I think. And I'm honored that you're part of it and that we can do this work.
Thank you. Yes. So back to you. What is on your writing horizon now? What are you working on at this moment?
Well, I'm doing a lot of marketing right now for As Long As I Know You, the mom book, because of course it won the AWP Nonfiction Award. So I'm going to AWP in a little bit.
Congratulations. That's so great.
Thank you. And that's been really a pleasure, nursing that into the connections with its audience, which is that's our job too. We think we're done with the writing, but that's not the case.
No.
We need our connections.
Yeah.
And then in the fall, the Long Fields will come out, this retrospective, and I'll be focusing on that for a little while. But in terms of new work, there are a bunch of things, but I have a manuscript. I should say we have a manuscript under consideration. It's my first hybrid attempt.
Oh.
And I worked with the award-winning photographer Taro Yamasaki, who happens to live in our county, and we have become friends. And I am responding to his photographs. He had particularly powerful photographs taken over the last 40 years from children of war in Romania through to sex trafficking happening in this decade.
Wow.
And these photographs I ended up responding in poetry to these photographs, and then went back and showed him what I was doing. And he was really intrigued. And then I got the oral histories of the photographs themselves.
Okay.
And he was very generous, amazingly generous that way. And so then we incorporated those into the manuscript, and it became a collaboration that it's such a gift. I never anticipated it. And so that manuscript, it's called Unguarded Moments, which is part of what he discusses when he discusses his philosophy of photography, of capturing that, even though if a photograph may be incredibly artfully designed, it has to feel that you're looking at an unguarded moment, which he does especially with the Children of War series.
Yeah.
And so that project is now coming to fruition, I hope. So cross your fingers on that one. Send good vibes.
Okay. Yes.
Because it would be one of the future, I'm just going to say this outright, one of the future things that are happening with writing with young writers right now is there's so much more hybrid work.
Yeah.
Multi-genre, collaborative genres. This is stuff you remember we were talking about back at Goddard.
Yeah.
But there was not much of a channel for it then.
Right.
Now with video essays and docupoetics and all of this that's not the problem anymore. Right. Now it's the problem of what are the conventions of it and how are we going to magnify the meanings that can come out of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's very exciting. So lots on the horizon, which is awesome. So I always like to finish our conversations by asking about any advice you might offer to listeners who are eager to build their writing careers. So what would you have to say?
I'm going to go back this is just me personally. I don't think this is anything that is terribly highly insightful or fresh, but just the tenacity aspect that you just continue to believe in yourself to the degree you can take small steps, which is what I did all those years. Like you, my parents said, you have to have something to fall back on.
Right.
And I don't know if that was a mistake or not. It was the way I lived my life because that's what they said to do. So I feel pretty strongly that tenacity and those small steps are really part of the whole thing that we have to do to keep going.
Yeah.
And then I think this old adage about reading, reading a lot is important to building a career because you have to know what's out there.
Yes.
You have to be aware of, these things are trending right now. This is happening in memoir. This is happening in fiction. Here's, how, and being creative as you read those, not being envious or jealous or anything.
Right.
Just being creative with that information, going, okay, if this is getting interest right now, then how might I play with that in such a way that it helps me connect with my reader? Does that make sense?
No, I love that. I do. And I think, that curiosity, I like that you're saying not being envious or jealous, because I really believe there's enough to go around. The tenacity is really just, I'm going to keep going until I hit success and not being discouraged when you get turned down, because you will get turned down and it may have nothing to do with you at all. So I think that's brilliant advice, and I really appreciate it. And
thank you. And the little steps. I think we have to really be proud of the little steps that you take. If you can write for a half an hour every Saturday, that's a half an hour every Saturday.
Yeah.
And if you're raising a family and still dreaming about this, stealing that 15 minutes between naps or during naps, whatever it takes, I think that's where you feed your soul.
Yes. Yes. Perfect way to end. So Anne-Marie Oomen, thank you so much for being on the Make Meaning podcast.
And Lynne, thank you for all the work that you do and all the teaching you do and the inspiration that you offer to people. Thank you for that.
Thanks for listening to the Make Meaning podcast with Lynne Golodner. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like what you've heard, subscribe and share this episode with the meaningful people in your world. And please leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. You can learn more at makemeaning.org or lynnegolodner.com.